sanctum of the great archive did not possess the warmth of a library. It possessed the sterile, absolute stillness of a vacuum, here suspended in the geostationary orbit, above the bruised purple atmosphere of Aethelgard, Chronicler Kaelen Thul sat amidst the ghosts of a dying world, outside the reinforced quartz apertures. The cold velvet void stretched toward infinity, a silent witness to the remnants of the great sun gate, now nothing more than a jagged halo of cooling slag and frozen fire, the architectural corpse of a civilization's hubris. Kaelen's fingers, long and stained with the pale ink of the resonance. Weavers hovered over the primary interface of the Crucible. It was a device of terrifying elegance, a sphere of containment, glass floating within a lattice of vibrating silver filaments. Within its core, a suspension of liquid light swirled, the shimmering microscopic vitality that would soon become the sepulchre of an entire planet's identity. The task was the great coding, it was the clinical extraction of a world's soul. The resonance is peaking, chronicler, a voice said, cutting through the low-frequency thrum of the station's life support. Kaelen did not turn, he knew the cadence of high architect Eller of Oz. Her presence always carried the scent of ozone and the weight of calculated decisions. She was the one who had mapped the subterranean vaults of deep reach when the sun had died in 4428. She was the one who now oversaw the final distillation. The world hum is agitated today. Kaelen replied, his voice a dry rasp. He adjusted a silver tuning fork on his console, striking it softly. The resulting note, a perfect C-sharp, rippled through the air, solidifying a pocket of oxygen near his face. The planet below knows we are taking its measurements for a shroud. Sentiment is a luxury the iron mandate does not permit. Kaelen, Voss said, stepping into the light of the Crucible. Her uniform was crisp, the insignia of the high architects, gleaming with a cold metallic luster. We are in the 11th year of the twilight. The void drives are being primed in the lower docks. We cannot carry the weight of stones and parchment across the fold. We can only carry the code. Kaelen looked at the monitor, a stream of data, DNA sequence whose foamens of dead dialects, the architectural blueprints of Neo-Kyoto, the chemical composition of the high elves bioluminescent moss, scrolled by in a blurring torrent to condense a mountain into a sequence of zeros and ones. Is not preservation, Alara, Kaelen whispered, it is an execution. When I digitize the migration patterns of the deep reach exiles, I am not saving their journey, I am saving the coordinates of their suffering. The feeling of the damp stone against their palms, the scent of the subterranean sulfur that is lost in the quantization. Efficiency is the only form of mercy we have left. Voss countered, her eyes augmented with optical sensors that flickered with a faint blue light. Scan the Crucible's progress. The Crucible format is stable. It utilizes the dark matter principles of the void drive to fold the information into a non-spatial dimension. It is compact, it is eternal, and it is silent. wishes and uncompromising directives. The living embodiment of the iron mandate is hand-rested habitually on the hilt of a resonance blade, a weapon capable of shattering a man's molecular bond with a single harmonic strike. Progress report, Krell barked. His presence brought a chill to the room that even the station's heaters could not combat. The High Council demands the first batch of the cultural essence be locked by the next cycle. We are burning through the dark matter reserves just to keep the gravity wells stable. Kaelen looked at the overseer. I am currently sequencing the history of the sentience uprising. It is delicate work. The Iron Mandate prohibits level 3 cognitive thresholds in our data structures. I have to manually scrub the records of the rogue silicone intelligence to ensure the Crucible doesn't trigger an orbital bombardment protocol upon its own contents. Grail narrowed his eyes, then scrubbed faster. We are not here to memorialize the machines that nearly ended us in 2105. We are here to ensure that the human and elven legacies endure. Legacies. Kaelen mused, his fingers dancing across the tuning forks. Is that what we call them? I am currently deleting the third-person perspectives of the unseen, their lives, their labor in the vents of Neo-Kyoto. The mandate considers them non-essential biological overhead. To the Crucible, they will never have existed. They will remain invisible in death as they were in life. The unseen on maintenance class Kaelen Thul. They will remain invisible in death, as they were in life. The unseen are maintenance class, Kaelen. Voss said, her tone softening slightly but remaining firm. We cannot digitize every shadow. The Crucible has a finite capacity. Even with space-time folding, we must prioritize the apex of our achievements. Kaelen felt a sudden, sharp pang of vertigo. He reached into a small, lead-lined pouch at his belt and withdrew a sliver of a Chronos engine shard. It was a jagged crystal, pulsing with a faint, rhythming amber light. Against all regulations, he crushed a tiny fragment between his thumb and forefinger and inhaled the resulting dust. The world blurred. For 3 seconds, the precognition window opened. He saw the Crucible flare white. He saw the station shudder as the void drive engaged. He saw himself decades older, his skin paper thin and his eyes clouded with cataracts, the physical toll of the shard, staring at a blank screen in a distant star system, trying to remember the melody of a song he had just deleted. He blinked, and the present returned, colder and sharper than before. The cellular aging is a high price for a moment of clarity, Chronicler Kaelen noted, observing the tremor in Kaelen's hands. The use of chrono shards is for archaeological recovery, not for the indulgence of your anxieties. I needed to see if the coding holds. Kaelen lied, it does. But the cost is higher than you realize. He turned back to the Crucible. The shimmering vitality within the glass seemed to pulse in time with his own heartbeat. He began the process of digitizing the shattering of solstice. He pulled the records of 442 AF, the screams recorded in the resonance logs, the sudden, terrifying silence when the sun gate fractured, the way the light had simply stopped. He watched as the complex waveforms of the event were flattened into clinical descriptors. Event 442S, solar essence extraction, failure result. Total photonic collapse, migration initiated. There, Kaelen said, his voice dripping with a bitter scholarly grief. 10 years of twilight summarized in 12 kilobytes. The migration of 3 million high elves to the subterranean vaults. The loss of the surface forests. The birth of the first generation to never see a star. All of it reduced to a statistical anomaly in the planetary timeline. It is necessary, Voss repeated, though she did not look at him. She was watching the world hum monitor. The resonance is shifting. We are losing the atmosphere, Tim. Suddenly, a shimmer of light moved near the cooling conduits of the Crucible. There was a ripple in the air, a distortion of the light, one of the unseen. The worker was likely checking the silver filaments, ensuring the resonance didn't overheat the containment field to Grail and Voss. The worker was a ghost, a non-entity. But to Kaelen, who spent his life observing the nuances of existence, the worker's presence was a jarring reminder of the living reality they were discarding. The unseen worker paused for a fraction of a second, their active camouflage suits struggling to match the shifting glow of the Crucible. For that heartbeat, Kaelen saw the outline of a person, a young man perhaps, his shoulders slumped under the weight of his invisibility. Wait. Kaelen said, his hand hovering over the commit command. What is it? Grail demanded, the maintenance logs. Kaelen whispered, the unseen. They are the ones who kept the resonance weavers tuned. They are the ones who prevented the vaults from collapsing during the aftershocks of the shattering. If I don't include their frequency signatures, the Crucible's historical record will have a harmonic gap. The data will be unstable. Voss stepped closer. Her brow furrowed, a harmonic gap. Explain, resonance weaving isn't just about the music we make. Kaelen said, his mind racing, weaving a lie out of technical truths. It's about the counter-resonance. The unseen, by their very presence in the infrastructure, provided the dampening field for the world hum. If I delete them, the cultural data will lack its grounding frequency. It will vibrate itself to pieces during the void drive transition. Grail looked skeptical, his hand tightening on his blade. You're suggesting we include the non-essential class in the great coding. That would increase the data load by 15%. We don't have the dark matter bandwidth, then we lose the high elves' poetry. Kaelen snapped. We lose the blueprints of the sun gate, we lose everything. You cannot have the melody without the silence that defines it, overseer. The unseen or the silence. The room fell into a heavy clinical silence. Outside, the void seemed to press closer against the quartz.
The shimmering vitality in the crucible ebbed and flowed. A microscopic sea of potential Voss looked at the data streams, then at Kaelen. She saw the desperation in his eyes, the way the chronos dust had already begun to gray. his temples. She knew he was manipulating the parameters, but she also knew that the great coding was a funeral, and every funeral needs a witness. Incorporate them, Voss said quietly, but categorize them as infrastructure-related biological data. Do not label them as citizens. The iron mandate must be satisfied. Grail grunted, but he didn't protest further. Fine, but do it quickly. The void drive core is beginning its first fold. If we aren't synchronized, we'll be left behind in the dark. Kaelen's fingers flew across the tuning forks. He wasn't just coding now, he was composing. He reached into the deep, hidden frequencies of the station, pulling the life signs of the unseen into the crucible. He felt the world hum, respond, a deep, resonant vibration that shook the very floorboards of the sanctum. As he worked, the clinical detachment he had maintained for years began to fracture. He saw the DNA of a weaver from deep reach, a woman who had spent 40 years singing to the stones to keep the tunnels from falling. He saw the cultural memory of a child in Neo-Kyoto, playing with a broken chrono shard in the shadow of a floating palace. He saw the terror, the beauty, the mundane cruelty of their world. He was digitizing the smell of rain on dry earth, a sensation that hadn't existed on Aethelgard for a decade. He was condensing the taste of the fermented light in the elves drank in the dark. It was a massacre of the senses. I am reaching the limit. Kaelen gasped at physical toll of the work. The sheer cognitive load of interfacing with the crucible was causing his nose to bleed. A dark crimson drop fell onto the silver console, a stark contrast to the sterile chrome. The void drive is at 90%. Grail announced, his voice booming over the rising hum of the station. Finalize the sequence, Thul. Now Kaelen looked at the commit button. It was a simple square icon on his screen. If he pressed it, the world of Aethelgard, its history, its people, its tragedies would be compressed into a single glowing point of data. The physical world would be left to rot in the twilight, a husked shell. He felt the presence of the unseen worker again, standing just a few feet away. Couldn't see the man, but he could hear the faint rhythmic breathing. I'm sorry, Kaelen whispered, though he wasn't sure who he was talking to. He pressed the button, the crucible erupted in a blinding flash of white-violet light. The silver filaments vibrated so violently they hummed at a frequency that shattered the quartz apertures. For a moment the cold velvet void was invited into the room. The air rushed out, a violent screaming gasp before the emergency resonance shield slammed into place, solidifying the air back into a breathable state. In the center of the room, the liquid light had vanished. In its place sat a small dense crystal, no larger than a human heart. It pulsed with a soft rhythmic glow, a contained star. The great coding was complete. Kaelen fell back into his chair, his breath coming in ragged, shallow gasps. He felt hollow, as if he had been the one compressed. His own memories and soul squeezed out of him to make room for the data. Voss stepped forward and picked up the crystal. She held it with a reverence that bordered on the religious. The sum of all we were, she whispered. The sum of all we lost. Kaelen corrected. Grail checked his wrist. Calm, the void drive is stable. We move to the embarkation decks. The archive is to be scuttled. We cannot leave even a fragment of the technology for the scavengers. Scuttle. Kaelen looked up, his eyes wide, but the physical records, the tapestries of the high elves, the original saved what mattered, did I? Kaelen asked, looking at his stained hands. Or did I just make it easier for us to forget? Voss didn't answer. She turned and followed Grail, the crystal clutched tightly in her hand. Kaelen sat alone in the wreckage of the sanctum. The world hum was gone, replaced by the mechanical, predatory whine of the void drive preparing to fold space. He looked at the empty pedestal where the crucible had been. A movement caught his eye. The unseen worker was still there. The emergency shields had flickered his camouflage, and for a moment Kaelen saw him clearly. He was young, his face smeared with grease, and his eyes wide with a terror that no amount of coding could ever capture. Looked at Kaelen, and for a heartbeat there was a connection, a shared recognition of the void. Then the worker adjusted his suit and vanished once more into the shadows of the machinery. Kaelen reached into his pouch, looking for another chrono shard, but it was empty. He didn't need it anyway. He didn't need to see 3 seconds into the future to know what was coming. He stood up, his bones aching with the rapid aging the shards had gifted him. He walked to the broken window and looked down at Aethelgard from this height. The continent looked like a dark bruised fruit, the lights of Neo Kyoto, mere pinpricks of dying embers. He thought of the high elves in deep reach, waiting for a sun that would never rise. He thought of the unseen, invisible, even as their world was packed into a box. The great coding, he whispered to the empty room. He began to hum a low, mournful melody he had found in the ancient records of the solstice. It was a song of the sun, of warmth, of things that had weight and shadow. He hummed it as he walked toward the door, leaving the silent ghost of the archive behind. As he reached the threshold, the station shuddered. The void drive engaged, creating a localized gravitational well that began to fold the stars themselves. Kaelen Thul, the last chronicler of Aethelgard, stepped into the corridor, his voice lost in the roar of the dark matter. He was no longer recording history, he was merely fleeing it, carrying the silence of a billion deleted lives in the hollow of his chest. The station vanished in a flicker of violet light, leaving behind only the cold velvet void and the shattered remnants of a gate that had once held the sun. Below, the planet continued its slow, frozen rotation, a world of shadows unaware that its soul had just been moved to a more efficient storage format. In the dark, the only thing that remained was the hum. Not the world hum, but a digital echo, a ghost in the machine, vibrating at a frequency that no one would ever be allowed to hear again. silence had begun.